Hey everyone, Josh here with a look at another Star Wars toy. And today we're looking at a toy from the Shadows of the Empire toy line. And if you're not familiar with what Shadows of the Empire is, it's a book from the Star Wars Expanded Universe. It came out in the 90s, and it is a storyline that is set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And they also turned it into comic books and a video game for the Nintendo 64 system. And to anyone out there who actually has access to a Nintendo 64 system, if you can get a copy of the Shadows of the Empire game, I highly recommend it. It was probably one of the best games ever made for the Nintendo 64 system. It's very well done. I highly recommend it if any of you are gamers out there. And moving on to the figures, though, so about the time the Power of the Force line was out in the mid to late 90s, they came out with a small line of toys for the Shadows of the Empire, and to go along with the book. And this is a set of those toys, and apparently at some point in the story, and I apologize, I've never actually read the full novel, there's a battle between IG-88 and Boba Fett. And so in this two-figure pack, these two figures actually came together. The name of the set was called Boba Fett versus IG-88. And when you purchased it, you got these two figures, and you actually got a comic book from the Shadows of the Empire storyline. And it was actually a Dark Horse comic. So this was before everything was owned by Disney, including Marvel and Lucasfilm. But ever since Disney purchased Lucasfilm, they took most of the expanded universe stuff, the books and the comics, and said they're no longer canon. So, but you can still find these figures on Amazon and eBay. I have seen them out there. So let's take a look at them real quick, and let's look at IG-88 first. And I just want to spin him around so you guys can get a look at the figure. And of course, this guy's only screen appearance that I'm aware of was in The Empire Strikes Back. He was one of the bounty hunters that Darth Vader hired to find the Millennium Falcon. And you'll see he comes with a blaster pistol and a blaster rifle. And let's check those out real quick. And there you go. And you'll notice his blaster pistol is very similar to what a stormtrooper carries. And one thing that's a little bit different about him, you'll see if you look at his hands, I'll pop this pistol out here, you'll see they're like little robot claws. So it's difficult for him to hold on to the weapons properly. So if you look at the weapons, you'll see they put little notches on the handle on both sides so he can hold on to it properly and it won't fall out of his hand, but it helps IG-88 hold on to the weapons. And here we'll look at his blaster rifle here, if I can get this darn thing to focus. And of course the rifle is much more screen accurate. I believe this is actually the rifle he was holding in the movie in Empire Strikes Back. But it's the same thing. If you take it out of his hand here and you look at the handle, you'll see there's little notches on it for his hand to slide into so he can hold the weapon properly. And there you can see it. And real quick, let's just check out IG-88's movements. I'm going to pull him off the stand here. And you'll see his head spins all the way around. And he has shoulder movement only on his arms. And you can spin them all the way around. Both arms. He does have waist movement. And hip movement. So I don't believe they ever actually showed IG-88 ship. But if he has one and you can get him in it, no problem. There. And there you go. And I know a lot of you might be wondering, well, why would I buy a two-figure set when couldn't I just buy IG-88 and Boba Fett separately from the Power of the Force collection And the answer to that is no, because they never actually made an IG-88 figure. They made one in the Power of the Jedi toy line, which came after the Power of the Force. They did make an IG-88 single figure, but in the Power of the Force collection, I am not aware of them ever making an IG-88 figure except for the Shadows of the Empire toy line. And I may be wrong about that. If I am, feel free to correct me in the comments. And then next, of course, you have Boba Fett, who was in the pack as well. And now this figure, Boba Fett, you could actually buy a single Boba Fett figure from the Power of the Force collection line. And he did actually look a little different. And I actually have that figure here. So just to show you the differences between the two Boba Fett figures. And I don't know how many of you realize this, but Boba Fett's costume changed a little bit from Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi. Now this is the figure here that came with the Shadows of the Empire toys, and it is much more accurate to the way Boba Fett looked in Empire Strikes Back. And this is the Boba Fett figure that you would get if you buy a single Boba Fett figure from the Power of the Force toy line. And you'll see there's slight differences between them. And it has to do with the difference between costumes from Empire to Return of the Jedi. So in Empire, Boba Fett's backpack was completely green, his cape was brown, the bags on his pants were green in Empire, and in Return of the Jedi they're brown, and the color of the gauntlets and his gloves are also different from Empire to Jedi. So you'll notice first the jetpacks are different colors, and the capes are also different colors. In Empire he wore a brown cape, and in Return of the Jedi he had a dark green cape. And then you'll also notice the gauntlets are different colors. In Empire they were green, and in Return of the Jedi, I'm not sure they were this red, but they were a little bit different color. They weren't, I believe his gloves in Return of the Jedi were actually yellow. A yellow and brown kind of color mix. And then the other thing you'll notice that's different is if you look at the pockets on his pants, right at his hips. In Empire they were green, and in Return of the Jedi they were brown. And so those are the main differences between the two figures. And the one thing that stands out the most is the backpack. If you look in Return of the Jedi, it was painted all different colors and highlights and things like that. And once you get to Empire, or when you're looking at the jetpack from Empire, it was almost totally green, one solid color. So, but real quick, we're here to look at the Shadows of the Empire figure, so let's check him out a little more, and I'll show you what he does. And let's just spin him around here so you guys can get another look at him. And you'll see he comes with the backpack and the cape and his blaster, and his helmet is not removable, it's permanent, it stays on. And real quick, let's look at his gun here. And I find it's just easier to leave the gun in the figure's hand and let them hold it for you than using my big fingers. And it does come out of his hand. You just kind of pull it and it pops out. Here you can see it. And real quick, to get the backpack off, all you do is you just push straight up and it slides off. And there's a little notch on his back, and there's a groove cut out of the backpack. And it just slides right on there. And then the cape and Wookiee braids, and that's what the braids are hanging down from his outfit there. And that little part of his uniform comes off, and it's his cape and braids and a little collar piece. And the braids have a little bit of flexibility to them, but the rest of it's pretty solid. It's a solid piece of plastic. And then here's Boba Fett with all the accessories off. You can see he's got a big peg on his back for holding his backpack. And real quick, let's check his movements out here. Very limited head movement. He's just got a little bit of wiggle. Got shoulder movement on the arms. Waist movement. And And he can sit down because, of course, Boba Fett's got to get into Slave 1, so at some point. But to reassemble him is really simple. You just want to pop the thing around his neck, the cape. Make sure it's in there. And you kind of got to wiggle it around his helmet a little bit, but it'll sit down. And then once that's on there, yes, slide the backpack on. And the backpack doesn't do anything. None of the parts move or anything. The missile does not come out. It's just some flexible rubber. And then finally, of course, we have his blaster. It's a little tricky to get in there. He gets a pretty tight grip on it, which is actually a good thing. So you want the figures to be able to hold on to their accessories. And then we'll put him back on the stand. Alright, where's IG? There he is. And this is how they had him in the packaging. If you've ever seen the packaging for this figure line, they have them facing each other, pointing their guns at each other, ready to fight. And there they are, everyone, from the Shadows of the Empire toy line. This is a 2-figure set called Boba Fett versus IG-88. And thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.